What's going on, guys? TJ here, or listen to the DM, here with another Dungeons & Dragons discussion video. Today's topic is related to the process of making a first edition Dungeons & Dragons character, and if you haven't seen my previous video on rolling attributes for a character, linked down in the description, go check it out, because it will help you understand this video a lot better. Anyways, guys, I hope that this instructional video will be of help, and without further ado, let's get into it. So to help you play and roll up characters, I've created these three charts. One of them will help you with your class, one will help you with your race, and another with your experience point bonus. These charts I use all the time and are very, very helpful. So, let's start off with the class chart, right here. As y'all know, classes in Dungeons & Dragons is something that every single character has. There are multi-class characters, which I will be doing another video on in the future. And then there are normal classes, which is just a straightforward class where you get certain disabilities and abilities and different things like that, where they vary from class to class. So, the first class is Bard, the second Paladin, Ranger, Monk, Illusionist, Assassin, Druid, Fighter, Magic User, Thief, and Cleric. Hopefully, those of you who play 5th edition or 4th edition or 3.5, whatever you play, hopefully you recognize some of these classes. Unless you play straightforward 1st edition like I do, I'm assuming that you won't know about all of them specifically. So, Bard I know is in 5th edition, and in 4th edition, a Bard is kind of a different class, and it is a class where as you level up, you will sort of acquire different classes. So for instance, I'm pretty sure you start out as a first level fighter bard, and then once you get to like 5th level maybe, you start to become a thief. And not all dungeon masters use it because of this, but I like to use it because, you know, why not? Next up, Paladin. Paladins, hopefully you would know that. That's one of the most commonly known classes in Dungeons & Dragons, and they're also one of the favorites, in my opinion too. Although they are very, very hard to get in 1st edition, same with Bards. This list is organized from least to greatest in how hard they are to acquire, based on your stats. Paladins, they can heal things, they can protect from evil, they're saintly, they're basically like like saints that, fighting saints almost, I don't know how to describe them, but they are really powerful. Next up is Ranger. Rangers, you know, like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, he's a Ranger. They're a fighter subclass, just like a Paladin, and they are really good at fighting. They can have all sorts of armor. They're adept at tracking and woodcraft and things like that. Next up is Monk, and monks don't use weapons. Monks prefer to use like their hands and their feet to kick or paralyze or jab or whatnot, and they are uncommon because it is hard to get them, and they're just rare in general. Next up is Illusionists. They are one of the overlooked classes, in my opinions, in 1st edition. I don't think that 5th edition has them. Basically, they sound a lot like they sound. They cast illusions and, you know, phantasmal forces, change self, all sorts of different kinds of illusions, and that's what they specify in. And they can get pretty powerful, and they do get offensive spells as they go up in levels. Next up is Assassin. Personally, I don't really like Assassins because they have to be evil, and, you know, I like to have lawful or good characters, but Assassins, if you have a paladin in your group, there can't be an assassin. The paladin will not adventure with an assassin. Next up is Druid, and they specialize in magic using the forest, such as like woodland animals, plants, weather, all sorts of different spells like that. Precipitation, summon insects, summon animals, charm animal or mammal. They're really cool. They can cast some really good spells, and I suggest them if you can get one. The last four are the simplest of all classes, and normally these four everyone can be. Like, usually your attributes are high enough that you can be one of them. They are Fighter, which is self-explanatory. Magic User, also self-explanatory. They basically use more offensive and straightforward spells than Druids. Excuse me. Next up is Thieves, and hopefully you know what a thief is. They can be good, neutral good. They can't be lawful good. Lawful thief, yeah. But I do like thieves because they aren't about killing people and things like that. And last is Cleric. Clerics are almost like a paladin, except they aren't as battle oriented. They're more healing oriented and spell oriented, whereas paladins can just lay on hands and heal you. But clerics are cool too. All of the classes are cool, really. I mean, Gary Gygax did a great job of making these classes. So, as I explained in my previous video, rolling attributes for a character, there are 6 basic attributes for a character. They are Strength, S, Intelligence, I, W, Wisdom, C, Constitution, Dexterity, D, and CH, Charisma. I explained what these stats are in the previous video, so if you don't understand, then just go check it out. The link is in the description, as I said before. So, like I said, you need to roll a certain number for each class in order to get it. When you look at Bard, if you look down the table, you can see under S, there's a 15. That means that your strength has to be 15 or above, which is a hefty number. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for 5 years now, and I've rolled up so many characters, and I have only rolled up one Bard because they are so hard to roll up, and their stats have to be so good. So that 15 for strength, a 12 for intelligence, which is average, so that's not the hard part. Wisdom 15 again, Constitution 10, Dexterity another 15, and Charisma another 15. That's pretty hard. And what I did was I added up all of the attributes, the number of attributes that each class needs in order for you to be able to adventure as that class. And Bard, definitely the highest amount of number, like 15 plus 12 plus 15 plus 10 plus 15 plus 50 versus Paladin, 12 plus 9 plus 13 plus 9 plus 17. Now, as a Paladin, their stats, that's average. It's not that, these 4 stats, it's not that hard to get. But the Charisma, that's always what gets you. 17 Charisma or higher, 18, 17 Charisma, that's not easy. Definitely not easy. Next up, Ranger, they're really good, and they're also hard to get. Monk, fourth best, 3 15s, that's what makes it hard. Illusionist, a 16 and a 15. And then from here on, except for Druid, it's not as hard, because Assassin, it's all spread out, 12, 11, 12. If it was like 15, 15, that's a different story. And then Druid, they have the 15 Charisma. And everything else, like I said, normally you're going to get, because you have to, for each attribute, you have to have a 7 or higher. Yeah, 7 or higher. Maybe it's 8 or higher, I'll have to double check that. So, you roll your attributes. Take Alder, for example, in my previous video. Let's say that he had a 15 strength. So you look down. Okay, so right off the bat, I know that there's nothing that I can't be. He had an 18 intelligence, I think. So you look down. Again, there's nothing. But then let's say he had a 10 for his wisdom. So he can be a cleric, a thief, a magic user, a fighter, an assassin, and an illusionist. Even though his strength and intelligence qualified, his wisdom didn't. So that's why he can't be, a bard, a paladin, a ranger, a monk, a druid. Your wisdom, or whatever attribute it is, has to be what it says on the chart, or higher. And that can be a challenge sometimes when you want to be a paladin. And that's how it gets balanced out. Because, obviously everybody would just choose to be a paladin or a bard if you could. Like, they're friggin' awesome. Like, a paladin, they can heal people. Why would you choose a fighter over a paladin? A fighter's exactly the same as a paladin, except a paladin gets healing abilities and other really cool stats that a fighter doesn't get it. Why would you choose a fighter over a paladin? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, like, same with a ranger. Ranger over fighter. Ranger all day. Like, Ranger gets the same abilities as a fighter, but just gets some bonuses compared to the fighter. So, you can see how it can be challenging at some points to get certain classes. That's why it's so important to roll good stats, and that's why it's rare to get other classes. So, I also put ALI there. That is standing for alignment. You heard me mention that assassins can only be evil. Specifically, they can be lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. Paladins can be lawful good, LG, and thieves can be lawful neutral, neutral good, neutral evil, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, and chaotic evil. So, they can't be lawful good. That doesn't make sense, a lawful thief. That's not even a thief. And a chaotic good thief. So, they can't be either of those. But they can be neutral good. And druids, they can only be neutral. That's the one thing that they can be. Druids and paladins, whenever you roll one up, sometimes people forget, and they make them like an evil paladin. Oh, that just doesn't make sense. And druids as a class, they're so focused on the planet and animals and everything else that they don't care about people as much. They care about animals like they were a lawful good person, but not really towards other people. That just not to say that druids can't be nice. They can. It changes their personality a little bit. So I hope that clears up how in first edition you have to roll certain things to get classes, and also how there are different classes and subclasses or whatnot in first edition than fifth edition. Personally, I kind of like the first edition way. Maybe that's just because I've been raised as a first edition person. Sometimes some of the names, they're just different. Like cleric, I'm pretty sure that's priest in 5th edition. I think that they do basically the same thing, just like with some slight variations, but just different name. Or thieves are rogues. I know that. There's also barbarian, other stuff like that, which I don't really like to use in my campaigns, but that's just my opinion. It's certainly cool if you're a dungeon master and you want to use that sort of thing. So next up, let's move down to our race chart. So as you all hopefully know, each character will have a race. whether it be human or something that's not human. I know some dungeon masters, this just gives me a headache. They like to use, goblins as characters or humanoids as characters. Like, come on, those guys are supposed to be evil, and they're not interested in venturing with humans and other people. They kill humans, and humans kill them. Okay, I mean the closest that we have to a humanoid is half orc. It's only half an orc, and I still don't like to use them because you can't see an orc. If you ever watched Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, you just can't see an orc as being good, or they're going to be evil. Even a half orc, The other races are Hobbit, again the Hobbit, elves, half orc, like I already said, dwarves, gnomes, half elves, and humans. So most of these, hopefully you're familiar with. I know there's also like dragonborns, other crazy stuff like that in 5th edition. I just like to keep it nice and basic so that there's no like crazy things happening, and it just keeps it all down to earth, or down to Greyhawk. Even though it is a fantasy game, I like to just stick to this. I mean, most of these are in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit if you want to get some more background on it. And I love how the Lord of the Rings movies describes them. They describe them exactly how I think of them, and I really like that. Or the books, So, as well as classes, races also have limitations. You look at the strength, S, you see a fraction, 6/17. So that means that a hobbit, they must have a minimum of 6 strength, but their maximum can only be 17 for strength. They can't have an 18 or 18/00, anything like that. Intelligence, they have to have a minimum of 6, minimum of 3, maximum of 17, minimum 10 for constitution, minimum 8 for dexterity, and then 3/12 for charisma, which means that they have to have a minimum of 3, and the maximum is 12 because, they have hairy feet and, stuff like other hobbity stuff like that. Elves, they only have minimums. They don't need to have a minimum for wisdom, just minimum 3 strength, minimum 8 intelligence, minimum 6 constitution, minimum 7 dexterity, and minimum 8 charisma. And it goes on. Dwarves, they're not the smartest creatures, no offense to you dwarves, sorry. But, they don't really have to have minimum intelligence or wisdom. Gnomes no charisma, restrictions or limitations, neither with dexterity or wisdom. So with half-elves, no wisdom or charisma. And humans, that's one of the good things about humans. They can be, no matter what their stats, you can be a human if you want to be. And you might also know, you might not know this, but some classes cannot be some races. For instance, I'm pretty sure that, I know this, a dwarf cannot be a magic user. I just find that kind of hard to picture, and that is in the Player's Handbook, the 1st edition Player's Handbook. That's one of the things that you have to take into account. There are certain restrictions on things like that. Just like maybe a hobbit can't be a ranger or whatever. That's why having a human, you can have any set of stats in any race. But being a hobbit, you get infravision, and you get to learn other languages. You get pluses on your saving throws. I think elves get plus 90% on their saves versus sleep and charm spells. Tons of other good stuff like that. That's why you'd want to be a demi-human, because it also adds some variety to the group, which is always a very good thing. You want to have a well-balanced. You don't just want to have a group of 10 fighters who are all humans. That's not very interesting or spicy, if you want to say that, group. I like to have a different variety, like maybe throw in some magic using or other things like that. guys, I'm sorry that I couldn't get to the experience points table in this video, but I will make sure that I get to it in a future video.